Hello, my name is Dr. George Mochocki, and welcome to the Strategic Management Series. We're in Session 4, Chapter 4. You're either taking me in an online class, a face-to-face class at a college, or in one of my workshops. Today we're going to be talking about recognizing firms' intellectual assets. I'm not talking about physical assets or capital assets. I'm looking at the intellectual assets, which basically looks at human capital, looks at our how do I utilize technology to improve my social capital and my human capital, and how do I use technology for as a central role of knowledge and in protecting my intellectual assets. So when I'm looking at this session here, we're looking at the fiber of an organization, and that's your human capital. What makes the company what it is, small, medium, or large, is the human capital. The most expensive aspect of my operation, but I need that interaction. I need that creativity. I need to know that these individuals are looking at the environment, scanning the environment, which we did in the previous series, and able to prepare the organization, the leadership going forward strategically within the next 5 years. Okay, so let's start with, we're going to move over. We're going to go over here to central role of knowledge. Now I'm going to break this down. Now if I look at the central role of knowledge, you already have access to my mind maps and any kind of publications if you're taking me to for some of my classes. If not, you could kind of follow along and stop and print if you want, I guess. Central knowledge. You're going to look at companies' values. We're going to look at knowledge economy. We're going to look at the ratio of market value to book value. We're going to look at intellectual capital, we'll look at human capital, and we'll look at social capital and knowledge management. When I'm looking at all these, this is just an overview of what we're going to be discussing in this next 20 to 25 minutes. So I'll look at the company's value. So now that the company's value is broken down, and let me see if I can make this just a little bit bigger. So people zoom, and I'll go with 250. How's that sound? See how that fits? And hit that, makes it a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm looking at physical assets. Physical assets are part of the company values. Remember, you have physical assets, I could touch them. The non-tangible, the human assets, even though I could touch the human, is what he or she contributes or does with the organization. That basically is the heart or the soul of every organization, is the human aspect. That brings customers in, that understands, that uses the creativity. So remember, physical assets are important, but how does an organization survive in this environment that's coming out of recession, for lack of better words, and now I strategically plan how to minimize my losses and keep my expenses down, but as the environment, as the economy is growing, how do I utilize this for the next 5 years and strategically plan? So now I take all my knowledge, and the knowledge is depending on what you're going to find out. The human capital is my employees. It is based on intellectual assets, all embedded in people. I can't take it out of there. We'll find out in a little bit. You could utilize it and tap into it if you motivate them and have the right processes, for lack of better words, in place. So now I have the company value. Now I'm looking at knowledge of the economy, the wealth affected by management of knowledge workers, right? That's part of my economy inside, instead of efficient control of physical and financial assets. So when I'm looking at the corporate, when I'm looking at the physical assets and looking at knowledge, when I look at this, it comes out to knowledge economy. I should just move the two together. It would have made a little bit sense, but it works out well. No, I might do that right now. I'll just put it in here. Okay, so I'm looking, I'll leave it separate. I'm trying to make this so it flows nicely. I'm working this live as I'm going. Okay, so we took care of that. Knowledge is a little different than the physical assets. We closed that off. Now, when I look at the ratio of market value to the book value, I've got things. So if I'm looking at the ratio of market value to book value, when I'm looking at market value, okay, and I got this here, it's a little bit bigger than I have. I'm looking at the ratio of market value to book value. What is the company's worth? The book value is accountants, what it's worth. Physical things I could sell off, this is what it's worth. I could tell physically, I have so much equipment, I have so much this, I could sell it off, I could put a dollar amount. So that works out well. But what happens is, so that's the book value. The market value is financial statement, established companies, useful for investors. But the accountants look at the gap between the market value, the book value, and the market value. Market value is what I could sell it for. The book value is Apple. And if we look at some of these, if you look at the chart, and I could probably make it smaller, but if you look at the chart that I provided, it is the book value. The market value is one thing. The book value the accountant puts on to the intellectual human aspect of it is the combination between the book value and the market value. So I have my assets, and then I put in there, I have a well-trained workforce, I have creativity, I have a brand, everything else that I could put on there that's in the book value that accountant looks like. It may not be so easily transferable. When AT&T was bought out by Southern Bell Communication, it used to be our phone company here in Illinois, they brought AT&T for two things. They brought it for the market value. Here's what they had for the assets and everything else, financial establishment. But they also brought it for the book value, and it was the name recognition. The brand AT&T was global. SBC, Southern Bell Communication. A lot of people, when they asked them, they thought it was Southern Baptist Convention. AT&T has a world name. So when you look at the two, you have to compare the company with both. This is what investors should be looking at. Okay, you're looking at not only the market value, but the book value. So when you read the book, you'd be doing pretty good on that. Okay, now intellectual capital. What is intellectual capital? It's intangible assets. And when I look at intangible assets, it basically measures the value of a firm's intangible assets, different between the firm's market value and book value. Very easy. I'm looking at, so what am I looking at these assets when I look at the value of an organization? It's reputation. It's employees' loyalty and commitment. They don't have strikes. They work well with the organization. Caterpillar lost that employee loyalty and commitment because too many strikes, there was management discord. And what happens? There was sabotage. The quality of work went down because they were fighting. We're going to get even. And that basically was a reflection where investors are looking at, hey, they're doing well on the physical aspect, financial, but when I'm looking at this employee loyalty, it doesn't look too good. So it affects everything else. Customer relations was affected, company values were affected, brand name was affected, and experience and skills of employees. These are all intellectual assets, capital that company has to put a dollar amount, whether it's arbitrary, but it means something, and this gives you a competitive edge going forward strategically. The next one is I'm looking at the human capital, individuals' capabilities, their knowledge, their skills, experience, employees, how experienced are your employees, how experienced are the manager. A new company, they're going through a lot of a learning curve, for lack of a better word, of a lot of trial and error. Where a more established company, they already have that worked out. The problem with an established company is just so rigid now, they don't know how to be changing. We've always done it this way. Now, so you have to find that mixture, and human people. So you put in the right individuals in there that are risk takers, but calculated risk takers. It doesn't take a risk and have the whole company go down. They make sure they put the right individuals that have that human capital and the experience we need to be flexible. Now, social capital. When I'm looking at social capital, when we go into the networking, we look at Facebook or LinkedIn, those are all social network relationships, not only within the organization, but also outside the organization. My suppliers, my customers, my friends, all that is something that I could, if I'm more active in the social realm with Facebook or different social medias, for lack of better words, I have a better competitive edge than those that don't. And if I have the right individuals in there that know how to do, and I hate to use the word manipulate, but be able to utilize the social network and media to the advantage strategically for the organization, for its profitability, to make the customers happy, to give them awareness, whatever my ultimate strategic goals are going to be, utilizing the human nature and the social capital. Now, again, the knowledge management, you have explicit, codified, documented, easy to reproduce, widely distributed. Here's the rules and procedures, no problem. That's no problem. So here's how do I turn on a machine? Boom, follow this step. How do I drive a car? Put your steering in. Whatever. Those I can do it. It's codified. It's easy. see. I could track it. I could train individuals. That's no problem. I could train them engineering. The problem is I can't train them as a task. In the minds of an employee, how does one employee know what to do faster than another employee? How does one employee be able to solve problems? How does one employee be able to see the whole picture? There's something else. How can one employee be able to get a correlation between events, cause and effect? Those are something in here. How does one know? When Steve Jobs with Apple, since they use Apple a lot of times, and Apple is one that's very strategically going forward. You remember Apple now strategically is looking at wear technology. So when I'm playing sports and everything else, I got the computers all over. It'll send me all the information, just like you do with fitness on the watch. The new smartwatch, new wear technology. Apple's trying to strategically. That's where they want to. That's what they see is the innovation. That's where they see they're going to have that niche that step out, that lead against the competitors, because they're always the innovators. Now, Steve Jobs, he did a lot of things that he was an innovator. How could you pull that out of Steve Jobs? I know that Mr. Cook is doing a good job, but does he have the same textbook knowledge in the mind of Steve Jobs? If I could pull out his brain, record it, and save it, then I could utilize. But if I put everything else that he does in the computer, could that computer be able to rationally make those decisions? Think of Spock on Star Wars, for lack of a better word. Very rational. And then you look at Captain Kirk. He still was rational to a point, but he was a risk taker. He was going, hey, we could get away with it. Probability. He was thinking outside the box. It didn't make any logical sense, but it worked, okay? That is where, these are the employees that I really want. I could train them this knowledge management. If I lose my key employees, I'm losing a lot. Because that's what's making the organization, okay? So now, let's go into human capital. We have different things. I have a figure on human capital, and this one here I'm not going to show you because I have to make it smaller. Well, let's see, maybe I can show you. Let's see. I'll just bring it in here and see if I could small it down here so you could see it, and I'll just bring it in here. No. Okay, so you're looking at attracting human capital, human development, developing human capital. There's the people, retaining human capital. This is basically the model, easy model. Now, how do I attract new employees? I have to hire for training and attitude. When you look at organizational behavior, if you're taking me from some serious organizational behavior, you're looking at culture or HR, human relationships. I'm looking at a lot of assessments. Technology tells me assessment. You got to have the right attitude. You got to be yes, I'm a risk taker. Yes, we could do it attitude. Yes, I'm thinking out of the box attitude. Those are kind of hard. A lot of people give a good facade, face, say the right words, but they don't have that attitude and train for the skills. The other thing, emphasis on general knowledge and experience. Social skills. When you look in teams, how do I take this information, this knowledge, and convince other people? I'm a salesperson. I'm an engineer. How to convince an engineer this is the wrong course of action? It's too costly. My customers don't like. How does an engineer convince a salesperson that this is the right course of action? Customers are going to want it. So there's somebody else who needs those social skills, how to communicate within teams and within an organization. Some individuals have all the knowledge, but they're like, yes, no. Very smart individuals, yes, no. And I wouldn't hire them. They got all the PhDs, no social skills. Doesn't do me any good. If I have them just working by themselves and coming up, fine. But if I'm working in a team, which most organizations are, interacting with individuals, different networks, I need those social skills. I have to have certain values. I gotta, that are similar to my values, certain beliefs and attitudes. Okay, so when they're looking at attracting, sound recruiting, build a pool of qualified candidates. I may not be hiring all of them. They put it in. I know a lot of things. Educators are a little strange. It always struck me a little weird. If I would be applying, or an individual be applying for a teaching position or whatever, and out of a pool of 500, and they bring it down to 20, bring it down to 5, and bring it down to the top 3. And what happens is you go through the top 3, and you select number 1. He's the best candidate. He or she was the best candidate. Number 2 and 3 didn't get it. What happens, number 2 and 3 are no longer ever involved in the poll anymore because they didn't make the top 3, so they start all over. Hey, you've got the top 3 out of 500 individuals, and you say no longer could you do that. To me, it doesn't make sense, but that's academics. They're a little bit different. In the business, what happened? I had the number 1. The number 2 and 3, they didn't get it. I keep them in the pool. If one doesn't make it, I pull number 2 in. I don't have to start the process again. It takes too long. And if number 1's in there, now I got number 2. He or she may not fit where I have here, but I may be utilizing him someplace else. They're already been certified, they've already made it to the top, they've done everything else, and maybe they didn't fit that position because you got a better person, but don't just throw that individual out. What the heck? I mean, you spent time and investment. You had to, you put them in a poll, having the right candidate for the right jobs, and not the greatest number of them. So remember, these are the polls, so you keep them in. And sure, you could interview, and you keep on building the poll. Down the road, you may bring them in. Hey, I know you applied for the job a year ago, but we got an opportunity here. You don't have to go through the whole process. We already have all this. Let's talk about money. I've eliminated my whole thing. I bring my talent pool in. I save time. I save frustration. I do a mini interview to see if anything changes the person, individual, and I'm up and running efficiently and effectively. That's what strategically you have to look at. So I got a great poll. Okay, now networking. If I'm looking at networking, when I hire current employees are best source of new employees. They provide incentives and referral. A lot of times I teach HR, tell an individual if somebody asks me, hey, could I use you as a reference? I said, fine. Or I'll ask them, could I use that? But first of all, I'll use you as a reference. How does your employee, how are you doing at work? Do they like you? Remember, because I'm only going to take the references of employees that are a high achiever, employees that have my value. Figuring you will recommend other employees that have the same value. If you already don't have that attitude value, you can recommend all you want. I am not going to touch your friend, and they could be real good. But remember, you're looking at it, you have something that's in common. So if you think this person is good and I don't think your values are good, I wouldn't, be careful on the referrals. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay, now, the other thing is about this with the human things you have to monitor, is developing employees. You got to develop them. Even though they got all the education, you have to come in there, and we all need development. I know in the peer reviews and we do with job performances, there's always some kind of developmental plan. I am at this one. When you're looking at to have somebody under succession plan, especially in management strategically, I want the next president to be the vice president of the company, or I want him or her to be a superintendent of a department or a leadership. I have to develop the talent I have now. Don't, here it is, now you're throwing it. That is poor development. He or she may not get the job, but I'm developing. That retains the individual. And I track their progress. Are they ready for the next promotion? Or if not this one, what's the next step? So when they come for that opening, I still look from the outside to make sure I do best. But I want to make sure I keep my talent inside. They have a good shot at getting that because I've developed them within there, and they have a longer probability of staying within my organization and not going to my competitor and taking everything I've trained with that individual. Okay, now training, all levels. Training is all level. Top management, middle management, first line supervisor. Most of the training is usually first line supervisor. And I hate using the words training. I like education. Training, I train a dog. You know what I mean? Maybe first level, a certain tag. But when I'm starting going with social skills and people skills, it's more educating. Educate them so now they could do it on their own. Training, they're only limited. That's just my perspective as a consultant and my how I look at things. And mentoring, you have to make sure you mentor the individual because that individual is going to have stumble blocks, or that individual may not have the confidence. And it's just the same thing when you're teaching your children or your grandchildren or friends' kids or something else how to ride a bicycle. You got to kind of mentor them. Here, hold them, you show them, you give them all the training, and then you kind of watch your progress, and you kind of encourage them without saying, hey, okay, you fell down, I had to get up, let's get going, take off the training. That is part of the mentoring, evaluating, and then you have to always evaluate the human capital you have right now strategically. Do I have the right individuals? If not, I'm going to bring them in. If not, who do I develop? That's called succession planning, okay? And now 360 evaluation. Oh, geez, it went a little bit further. If I look at 360 evaluation, if I'm looking at this, and I'm going to not go through the whole thing of 360 evaluation, but 360 evaluation is when you look at an organization, when I look at one individual, he or she's good on paper. When I do an evaluation as a supervisor, I see him doing a certain task at a limited time. I have my own task to do. A 360 does several things for me. It addresses traditional performance limitation because I only can see what he or she does. I can only see if they did the proper paperwork, turn things on time, or anything else, how to reports, how to write, written communication. But I don't see how to interact within individuals, within the team, within the whole organization. So this includes supervisors, direct reports, external. I send a survey. How did George do well? It's almost like a performance review, or if I look at it, for lack of better words, teachers' evaluations. How did you do a feedback process? My direct reports is anyone that reports to me, external and external customers. How did this individual? And I have to interact. So when I'm sending these surveys, it has to be to the individual that I interact, not blindly to send it to somebody else to supply distribution. Selected individually to the person so he or she could respond with detail and could respond with comments that are reasonable and make sense and could be effective and could help the individual improve on his performance. Okay, teamwork, complements to teams, employee environment, helps organizational flattening. That's what the 360 does. And then they had here with the 360, if I look at the vision of the 360 has developed, they looked at customer quality, focus, integrity. This is a survey question. There's a whole bunch of them. Vision is just one. Does this person have the vision, the values, and the communication, shared ownership? And this is just a set. Underneath there, you'd have a whole list of questions. Not too many. You don't want to overdo it to the individuals doing a survey and let them know. Sometimes you could say if you complete the survey, you get some kind of a gift or something else, because it could be intense. It depends on that. So you have to look at how much information and what are you going to use with the information. If you just take it and don't do anything, you use that and then you start developing. Use it when we go into the development here. Remember, I look at the information, and then if I see a lot of my surveys are not only one individual, but a majority of my individuals within an organization have this deficiency, then I do the training. Or if I see this a strong value, then I basically figure out a way to make sure I maintain that and I pass that value to new employees. Okay? So then retention, mechanism for retention. Prevent transfer of valuable and sensitive information, right? Helps employees identify with their organization. When I'm looking at retention remember, I'm looking at human capital, I'm looking at people. Provide them challenging work. Remember, you had Maslow, Herzberg, everyone. Challenging work. Stimulate environment. Make them feel well. I mean, in stimulate environment, I get to do a lot of things. I'm empowered. I have responsibilities. I'm accountable. I could do it my way as long as I meet the goals. I put the goals and everything else. I may do it this way. You may do it this way. As long as the ultimate goal. When I managed, they didn't care if I was an autocratic or if I was a participating manager. As long as I met the company's goals and objectives. If that didn't work, they're going to try another style of management. All right, offer financial, non-financial rewards, and we're going to talk about that. Other incentives, time off, recognitions. Take your wife out, take your girlfriend out, take your boyfriend out, take anybody out. Whatever it is, there's some kind of incentives other than just dollars. Dollars not the only reason people take jobs. I work for Apple. I work for IBM. I work for George's Consulting, George's Business Consulting and Education LLC. That could be a financial gain. That could be the reason people leave their job. They want to work with me, or they come to my class. I go to George's classes. It helps people. Why? I work at a certain college. Those whole things, because they give me the flexibility, that helps employees and that helps retention. And companies have to look at that. It's not only the dollars you're throwing on them, it's everything else that goes around there. Now I look at diversity. Why diversity? Can improve organizational effectiveness. Diversity helps reduce costs. It resources acquisitions. It helps in my marketing. It helps in creativity. It helps in problem solving. It helps in organizational flexibility. When we look at diversity, a lot of people look at diversity with ethnicity. No problem. And that's real easy. Culture, Polish, European, I'm African American, I'm Jamaican, I'm a person of color, I'm Hispanic. Those are all good. They come up with different ways. Also, diversity, you have to look at sales. You have to look where the person worked at. You look at, when you look at engineering, when I manage engineering, I'm not an engineer. I was my background is management and marketing with construction background. But if I'm looking when I manage engineering, what was the whole thing when I look at engineering? I had civil engineers, for diversity. I had electrical engineers. I had mechanical engineers. I had architectures. All kind of fell into engineering, but that's diversified. Same thing. You can't have. You look at a lot of academics, and one thing about academics, because mine's basically, I also work in the academics and also do some consulting for academics. If I look at the academic thing, what do they have? They have a lot of PhDs. All their PhDs are in education. Education does not tell me I have a PhD in my subject area. Just because I got a doctor, a PhD in education, it has to be education in management, education in marketing. in the subject area. You have everybody's got a PhD, or a majority got a PhD in leadership, everything else, not in the subject area. You want to have diversity of business people and academic and education, because that is what they are. But you have to be a diverse organization. You have to think diversifully, even in the educational realm on that. Okay, so that makes sense. So let's go back here. So that takes care of my human capital. We're moving pretty fast. Now I'm going to slide over on this side, and let's look at social capital. And I think I cleaned these up. Okay, if I look at social capital, why is social capital important? Social capital, for lack of better words, is friendships and talented among individuals. If I have that individual, because he and she has a nice network of friends, they could bring in other ideas. They have other ideas to bounce things off, like the Delphi thing. They could put things out and come back and ask questions to other individuals. Helps tie knowledge workers in a forum. I'm in there because of my friends in there, and he or she stimulates me. Interaction, sharing, collaborating. So social capital is important. It attracts and retains employees, right? Higher probability of retaining key knowledge workers, hiring a social network, bringing other talents with them. When somebody comes in, hey, work for George's GAM Consulting, or work for so-and-so, or work for Abbott, or work for this college, or work for College Lake County, work for Harper College, work for the University of Illinois. It doesn't make a difference. Work for DePaul, work for anything else. You bring talent in, because now they say, hey, if George just thinks that's a good place to work, I could work there. Okay, obtaining other resources and bring in info from outside the organization. Okay? So now, let's see. So I got social networks. Okay. Analysis. Disseminates the pattern of interaction among individuals. When I'm looking at social networks, I have to first analyze what I'm trying to pull out of the social network. Oops, sorry, this is supposed to be helps. I'll put an H in there, my mistake. Hey, we're doing live, so you know this is all current. Helps to diagnose effective and ineffective patterns. Who links to whom within the network or clusters. We have different clusters. We have our close friends, and we have our extended family and extended. If you look at Facebook, you basically have friends you don't even have no idea what, but you're making those connections. Who communicates with whom, and that's what I'm talking. And how effective is this communication? And I'm looking at this also like the grapevine, the informal communication, and how do I utilize that to the advantage? Okay. Now, closure relationship. I'm looking at degree of members' relationship with other group members. Important. How do I bring engineers and sales together? How to bring construction engineers and sales? How to bring customer service engineer? The individuals, if I was in engineering department, I already got a connection with that department. I know how they think. And now I went to the sales department. I got a connection with sales and engineering. Now I'm working with construction. You see how those connect? And it's all with one individual, because he or she. So now they're in these cross-functional teams. They could expand that knowledge. They could expand their connection, their social network, and they understand what works here, what won't work here. Now that's an answer. The tactical knowledge that I can't pull out of somebody, even though they've got a different individual. This person is the center. He or she knows how all these pieces fit, and they could help mobilize and move and think creatively and bring the right resources in when needed, or stimulate the right individuals to bring in their comments. Okay? Now, bridging the relationship gap helps connect otherwise disconnected individuals. That's what the social networks do. And structural holes. Okay, social gaps between groups and structural networks. Engineering and sales, traditionally more interactive than other groups. So you're going to look at where's my structural holes. Which department is not communicating with the other department? I'm the credit department, but I'm not working with the billing department. We should work together. There's a lot of times they're together. Or I'm the sales department, and I'm not working with engineering. Remember? So you have to see where the holes are, and you get this through the analysis of your social networks. Okay? Now, collaboration. That's a really good one. What about barriers of collaboration? Not invented here. Remember? Hey, we didn't do it here. Let's not collaborate. Hoarding. Biggest thing, people aren't willing to provide help. Search, right? How do I get search? Unable to find what they're looking for. These are some barriers. Transfer knowledge, right? Transfer, if I'm looking at transfer. Unable to work with people they do not know. Most people don't trust. I'll call you out in the blind. Hey, could you give me a hint? Who are you? What does he want? I don't know. If I was in a department, hey, Joe, I know I'm not here anymore. I got this issue. Could you help me out? Could you give me an idea how I could present this to your boss? Could you give me an idea what would make this work within your department? How could I make the connection? These are all barriers, right? And how do I encourage collaboration? The unification levers, I just leave them all up so it'll be easier for people. Create compelling common goals for different departments. In my goal, that's what the vision and the corporate goal strategically. What's the goal? Customer satisfaction. Every level I could go customer satisfaction. I clean the floor. If that floor is not dirty, customer's not going to be satisfaction. Think my equipment. So when I'm looking at the unification level, articulate strong value of cross-company teamwork. It's okay. You don't have to go up to the next level horizontally. You could talk to anyone to satisfy the customer needs. I don't care what department. If it is to satisfy the customer, talk to that manager. Talk to them. Utilize me as a manager as the last resort. Talk to the other manager. Talk to your co-worker in another department. You got the connections. That's why a lot of times when I was in the union, Electrical Brotherhood Union, they brought me into management. Well, I got the connection with the construction, the union, and now in the management, so they could utilize the connection, the mentality, the values, and everything else. I can make the connection. Okay, get the right people to collaborate. Not everyone's going to collaborate, so I put them in the leadership or in the positions that they are willing to collaborate. T-shaped management, working the right project, horizontal and vertical is what we talked about a little bit earlier. Okay, and then the last one is network levers. Build nimble interpersonal networks across the country. Let people have some kind of, I know it's company business, but you could have some public sites, social sites where people could interact and talk other than business. So, if I go to this social site, George is having a party, or I'm doing for this, fundraisers, all different sites. A lot of people enjoy that. And it separates my work from my social network, but it's still bringing the individuals to stay and retain within the organization, and it helps collaboration. I worked with them on a fundraiser, and now I realize I need them for something else to satisfy a customer. I made those connections easier to communicate with me. The next one is, let me move this over a little so you can see it. The next one is advantage, career success. Advantage for a firm and employee. Access to private information, power, and public information. Remember social capital? I could talk to my boss. I don't have to go through the chain of command. He has a chat room, or he has a blog. Anyone could put comments in there, and you could talk to him directly. That keeps your direct lines. I'm not snitching on him. What I mean? Most of the managers, you're not going to say, George didn't make it this. That's not what the blog is for. Just other information. Hey, I think that strategically, remember, at that level, I don't want to hear all the details that's happening on. That's why I have my direct reports and middle managers taking care of it. What I want to know is, hey, strategically, I think we should do this way. Our customer base, did you think about this market? Just to throw it in, and I already have it. George came up with the idea. What department does he work for? He works for George's department. Oh, perfect. That means George is developing as a supervisor, Sally or Georgine, and she has enough confidence and credibility to strategically think. Makes me look good, makes the employees look good. Okay, now what are some limitations? Group thing. Remember, social capital, you get too many people to start thinking the same way because they want to fit into the group. Dysfunctional human resource practices, expensive social process orientation and training. Individuals may distort or selectively use information in favor to their preferred cause or action. And that's, later on when I'm looking at politics. It's always there. I tell people, you can never get rid of politics. Some people politically want to be there just to get their name out there or make somebody look bad. They're not doing it for the good of the organization. Eventually, that individual, his or her values will come out. Somebody will come out, and I'll be able to pick that individual, and their whole career will be out of the. Basically, will slow down, or it will hinder the career growth. Depends who's in charge. Okay, now technology. Technology uses networks to share information. Important, right? Email, intra-company news feeds. I use technology to build a social network. Electronic teams or e-team. That's basically if you take me online or in some of my workshops, you do everything electronically. How do you do an e-team? Most of us that work in a corporate or small, we go to a meeting. I can't be in a meeting every 2 weeks. I go to a meeting, I got my share, and I pass information in, either on some kind of course management system, or I pass information in on some kind of a meet here, or some kind of PowerPoint or share PowerPoint. Something's out there where everyone could share it, put their comments and put it in there, and I could basically build on that. Okay, advantages of technology: few geographic constraints, access to multiple social contacts. Challenges: failure to identify the appropriate team members. Low trust. Remember, technology people still like the face-to-face, but then you have FaceTime and Skype. Lack of shared understanding, creative creates process loss. Leverage of human capital, and this one within the company, with its customers and its suppliers. Remember, if I use technology to my advantage and spread that away, it could help strategically. You need technology. There's no way around it. We're a leaner, smaller organization. How do I reach? How do I train? How do I develop? How do I connect? How do I express myself? How do I look at other companies? How do I find things out? How do I all that? It's basically with the use of technology. Right? I got a smartphone, phones. If you look at me, I got cameras, I got computers, dual computers, I got telephone. That's just, I'm not bragging. It's just anyone being in business. You have to be able to be techie savvy, even from a small organization. A small company definitely has to have more technology. I can't afford an accountant, so I got QuickBooks. I can't afford this, so I use a Google. I can't afford this, I have a web designer outside the technology. They'll do it for me. I give them some idea. They'll help me do my what do you call it? My page, my consulting page, my web page. But I use that technology to my advantage. Okay. Now the next one is, how do I protect intellectual assets? Harder to define over physical assets. Remember, I used the example. Physical, I could touch my computer. I could touch my microphone. That's why I'm so clear. I could touch certain things. But how do I touch a human asset? Could be stolen. It's in my brain. I got it. I could just pair it out. It's not protected by the state. Okay, knowledge assets. When an individual goes or leaves someplace else, or is upset with me, he's giving information out. It's his knowledge. How would I know he did it? I mean, you could have some kind of clause. You can't give anything if you leave. You keep all this in there. You could take the person to court, but that information's out there. Okay, competencies, complementary assets, ability. To sense and size the opportunity, generate new knowledge, new internal processes, routines, alliances or acquisitions, human assets, intangible, technology update, social network. That's how I protect them. All those I have to have policy. If you take me for organizational behavior or HR, organizational behavior and HR basically is processes and policies, and that's another way I could do some kind of a way of checks and balances and have some procedures in there to protect your organization. And my knowledge, my human knowledge. So anyway, that's just, I think I'm about a half an hour or longer. There's a lot of information. This is very important strategically. Remember, you could fast forward me, slow me down. This is a quick overview on Strategic Management Series. We're in Chapter 4, Session 4, and recognizing firms' intellectual assets, moving beyond the tangible and going into the intangible, which is human capital, social capital, and social networks, and technology is basically a component that kind of ties everything together. My name is Dr. George Mochocki, and I'll see you in the next series, and have a nice day. Bye.